welcome to Tech Analysis and Testing, where I talk about both a free-to-play and a more expensive version of a particular deck. Today we are talking about MIKANKO, which is a deck that has been out for a while, but because I haven't been making videos for some time, I still haven't talked about this deck. This deck is basically an equip spell deck, which sounds not very good, but good news is that it's actually not that bad. The deck is pretty competent, even though it's not tiered, but it definitely can defeat some of the top tier decks that are running around in ranked right now. So before we talk about the individual cards, you probably could tell that we are not playing an extra deck, because this is not an extra deck strategy. You don't need any cards in the extra deck for it to work, so we're playing a copy of the Pendulum level 5 that draws a card if you don't have any cards in your extra deck, which is kind of a consistency boost, because otherwise the deck might brick a little because we don't have multiple copies of the ritual or the preparation of rites that searches it in this free-to-play version. We will have an extra deck in the expensive version because we will have ways to search our main starter, so that wouldn't be a problem. And also, the MIKANKO skill, which is a pretty good skill already, will be receiving a buff in the next ban list, because as of right now, the skill actually prevents you from using one of your equip spell effects from reviving a monster from your opponent's graveyard if your opponent doesn't have a monster with 3000 or more attack in their graveyard. And that kind of sucks, so pretty nice that Konami fixes the skill in the most recent ban list update. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. So let's talk about the skill first. The skill has a couple of effects. The first one lets you reveal a MIKANKO monster from your hand, and then add any MIKANKO card from your deck to your hand, and then send a MIKANKO spell card from your deck to the graveyard. This makes pretty much any of your MIKANKO monsters a one-card starter, and that includes the 2 rituals, the 2 blue, the 2 red, and the 1 reinforcement of the army that searches the low-level MIKANKOs. And the second effect is if your opponent is the only one who controls a monster, you can set a MIKANKO spell trap from your hand or deck, and then it can be activated the turn that it is set. So kind of like the Blue Eye skill, and it's pretty useful to force out some interruptions before you commit to your big plays. So let's have a look at the cards in the deck. So we have our main monster, which is the Ritual. Ohime is a level 6 ritual that you can summon using 2 ways. You can either ritual summon it using the ritual spell, or you can just cheat it out using the Great MIKANKO Ceremony, which just summons it for free. Usually when you're going first, you want to cheat it out, and when you're going second, you want to use the ritual spell, because the ritual spell has a board web effect, which is pretty good. This card can reveal itself and then search any MIKANKO card from your deck to your hand, and then you discard a card afterwards. So it searches anything that you're missing. Usually you can use it to search the ceremony that summons the ritual, or you can just search any equip spell that you're missing. And it has a quick effect on field to just equip an equip spell from your graveyard to any monster on the field that it can be equipped to. So not only is this a way to quote-unquote search your equip spells by having a way to send to the graveyard with, for example, your skill, you can send any equip to the graveyard and then use it to use the ritual to get it back as a way to get access to the equip spell, or you can use it as an interruption by equipping something like a Axe of Fools, which has a negative effect to your opponent's monster, so that it acts as a form of interruption. Next is 2 copies of Nini, which I will call the blue one. This card is the one that you want to have on the field if you are going first, because it has an interruption effect. So all of the MIKANKOs, I forgot to mention, have the same effect that pretty much lets them take no damage and also not be destroyed by battle when it is equipped to an equipped card, and also your opponent takes any damage that they will take instead. So even though they have 0 attack, it is completely fine. And the ritual does not need to have an equip spell to be able to use the attack redirecting effect, as I will call it. And a lot of people actually don't know that. They think that it only works if you have an equip spell on it, but for the ritual, you don't need to. works as long as it is on the field, regardless of if there is an equip spell. Okay, let's continue with the effect. The blue one has a crit effect while during your opponent's turn, if it has an equip card equipped to it, you can target one opponent's monster, face-up monster your opponent controls, and just steal it until the end phase. So it's a pretty good form of monster removal. And then we have 2 red MIKANKO. This card, when a card is equipped to it, you can add a MIKANKO equip spell from your deck to your hand. So it searches and is pretty useful both for going first or second to just add more things to your hand. And just having more equip spell in rotation is a good thing because of the ritual spell, which gets better the more equip spells you have in your graveyard. And then we have the 1 reinforcement of the army to search it. And then for the equip spells, we have 2 copies of Water Arabesque. This is the kind of compulse that is pretty good going second, but still pretty good going first. You can use it to bounce your opponent's monsters by using it to equip to your opponent's monster, and then use its effect. And then you can summon MIKANKO from the deck, and then bounce whenever it is equipped to previously. And then if you use it to summon something like a Hare, that will trigger its effect as well, because the Arabesque will equip itself to the Hare, and then it will trigger the search effect. We have a copy of Fire Dance. It's kind of confusing because a lot of the MIKANKO equip spells look the same. There's like 2 blue ones and then the 2 red ones. So be sure to not activate the wrong one. It took me a while to kind of get used to the cards, because otherwise you might mistake them for one another, which really sucks. This card is the Reborn, pretty much. You can activate this card by reviving MIKANKO from your graveyard, or you can summon from your hand if you want, and then it equips itself to that card. And then your opponent, you can summon a monster from your opponent's graveyard to their field, and negate its effects. So this is the card that I've been talking about, that the skill kind of contradicts itself with, because the skill prevents you from summoning any monsters that have 3000 or less attack, except for MIKANKO's. So if your opponent doesn't have a high attack monster in their graveyard, you cannot use Fire Dance to revive it, but that will change in the next skill update, because the skill will be buffed. And we have a copy of Reflection Rondo. This is the main form of interruption that we will be using during if we go first, because this card can be equipped to your opponent's monster, and then you just get to steal it if you have a MIKANKO monster on your field. And that's pretty much all it does. And a copy of MIKANKO Purification Dance. This is the 2nd red equip spell. This card can, when your opponent special summons a monster, you can just bounce back one of your own monsters plus that monster that your opponent special summons. It can technically bounce another monster that your opponent has, but usually it's going to be bouncing the thing that your opponent summoned. And it is another way that you can interrupt your opponent. And then we have a copy of MIKANKO Ceremony that cheats out a MIKANKO, usually the ritual. And then you can banish itself from the graveyard to send a MIKANKO card from your deck to your graveyard. So that usually sends a copy of Rondo or some other equip spell that you might need in your graveyard. So usually either Purification or Rondo are the 2 equip spells that you want to have in your graveyard, especially when you go first. And then the Ritual, which is the main way that this deck gets to break boards going second. So imagine like Blue Eyes, right? They have the trap that they just get to use for their very first action that just gets to pop things without targeting. So that's just basically like that. So you can just activate this card. You can ritual summon the Ohime from your hand by using tributes from your hand or field, and then depending on the number of equip spells that you have in your graveyard, you can just pop stuff equal to the amount that you have without targeting, and then you can just burn for 500 for each card that you destroy with this effect. The burn is not that relevant, but the non-targeting pop definitely is really good. And the fact that you can just do that without committing anything to the field makes this card really strong. And the main game plan that you want to go ahead and do when you go second is you want to use your skill or use Ohime's effect to put equip spells in your graveyard, because the more equip spells you have in your graveyard, the more cards the ritual spell will pop. So once you load your graveyard with as many equipped spells as you could, you can just fire off the MIKANKO ritual spell, and then you can just summon the Ohime and then just blow up everything that your opponent has that might interact with your board, and then maybe leave like one monster on the field so that you can use your MIKANKOs to punch into. And that's it for the MIKANKO spells. Let's go over the MIKANKO traps. We have one copy of Promise. This summons a MIKANKO from your hand or deck and then equips an equip spell from your hand or graveyard to it. So this is almost always going to summon blue MIKANKO and then equip the copy of Purification Dance to it. So your going first game plan is to have the Purification Dance in your graveyard and then set the Promise so that during your opponent's turn you can just activate the Promise, summon the blue MIKANKO, equip the Purification Dance, and now you have 2 interruptions because Nini steals a monster and Purification Dance bounces a monster. And then finally we have a copy of MIKANKO Rivalry. This equips any equip spell to any monster on the field while you have a MIKANKO monster on your field. So usually this is going to equip the Axe of Fools to use its effect to negate. So speaking of Axe of Fools, let's talk about this card because I skipped over it. This is the only non-MIKANKO equip spell that we were playing. There are other stuff that you could play. You can play a double-edged sword, I think it's called. That card lets you do a lot more damage because it pretty much doubles the damage that your opponent takes, but that's kind of a win more card that doesn't really do anything on its own, so you can do without it, and in my opinion it's better that you don't play it. But Axe of Fools is definitely a card that you want to play because it is a negate. It's an equipped spell that negates the monster that is equipped to, and also that monster gains attack, but that is a good thing because you want your opponent's monsters to have more attack so that when you attack with your MIKANKOs, they take more damage. And for the generic stuff, we're playing 2 Kaijus. Thunder King the Lightning Strike Kaiju is a really high attack Kaiju that is free to obtain, so we're playing 2 copies. And then the one Ankamu Fry that draws us a card. And that's it. We're not playing an extra deck because of the Pendulum that draws us a card. And that's pretty much all we need. Let's have a look at the expensive version. So this is a more expanded version of the free-to-play version. We're playing more searchers for the ritual. We're playing 3 copies of Preparation of Rites, 3 copies of Nadir Servant, which sends Herald, and then Herald will search the Ohime. And Nadir Servant is really good in this deck because first of all, you don't really summon from an extra deck, so the drawback is completely negligible. And not only does it search Ohime, it also adds a free card to your hand. It adds White Knight of Dogmatica. Honestly, you could play any high-level Dogmatica. It doesn't really have to be this card, but this card is a high-level ritual because it will be useful for Tribute Fodder when you want to ritual summon your Ohime. You can just use the 1 copy of Dogmatica to use as the whole Tribute. And also the fact that it's a ritual monster might come up 1 in 100 games when you already have every single other ritual monster and you want to search a 5th ritual monster, but you can play like a Fleur-de-Lis if you want. I don't think it matters, but it's useful. You have to play at least 1 Dogmatica monster for you to search with your Nadir Servant, otherwise you could not activate your Nadir Servant. And Nadir Servant not only adds the sends Herald to add Ohime and add the Dogmatica, you can also choose to send other stuff. You can send Entis, which pops a card, or you can send Malong, which bounces a card. So really flexible card. If you have 3 copies of the Nadir Servant, definitely play it in this deck. It's really good, really flexible. Even if you have 2 copies, you should still probably play it because it's so good. And maybe not if you have only 1 copy because 1 Nadir plus 1 brick isn't really exactly that good of a ratio. And if you draw the Dogmatica, the Nadir Servants all don't do anything because it must search a target from your deck. So if you decide to play less than 30, you probably don't want to play Nadir Servant because that increases the chance of you drawing the brick. And Preparation of Rites does not have this problem, so if you have Preparation of Rites, you should definitely play as many copies as you could. And then we can just play 3 copies of Ohime in this expensive version, and the rest of the deck is pretty much the same in terms of like the archetypal cards. We're just playing 1 less copy of the blue one because we don't really need that many copies of the blue one. In the free-to-play version, you want to play as many as you could just because it lets your skill search anything. But because we already have so many ways of searching the Ohime, we don't really need the other main deck MIKANKOs. So 1 is fine. And then we're just playing 1 copy of all of the other stuff because we don't exactly want to draw them. We're playing 3 copy of Water Arabesque because this is kind of a board breaker. You can use it to equip to your opponent's monster when you go second, and then that forces out some interruptions. And other than that, we're playing a lot of Battle Fader style cards. So we're playing 1 copy of a Beaufort, which is an attack negate that you can use to you can use Nadir to search if you already have the Ohime in your hand if you go first. So you could go Nadir, send Herald. Herald will when it's sent, it will add any ritual. You can, if you already have the Ohime, you can add this card instead, and it blocks an attack. And not only does it block an attack, it also negates the monster that it blocks the attack with. So it also sometimes blanks an interruption by using it on a monster that has a quick effect. Other than that, we have 3 Kiteroid, 3 Ghost Jack Frost, just more Battle Fader monsters that pretty much help us survive. Because even though this deck has a really solid game plan going first by using Ohime to equip the Rondo to steal, you can equip Axe of Fools using Rivalry to negate, you can use Promise to summon Nini, and Nini steals, Purification Dance bounces, that's like 4 interruptions. Even then, you still kind of don't really want to use that many resources to do that. When you go first, you much rather just end your turn with 0 monsters on the field and just sit on Kiteroids and sit on Jack Frost, because not only do you have more resources for the follow-up, you also prevent your opponent from using the bonus effects of their skill, because like if all skills made into the year 2025 have a bonus effect if your opponent controls a monster. So just by having no monsters on the field, you prevent your opponent from having the bonus effect, and still like keeping a lot of resources in your hand that you can use for turn 3. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. And then for the extra deck, we have a bunch of stuff that we don't really summon, but is there in case that we need them. Aside from, you know, the 3 Nadir Servant targets that we will be sending to the graveyard. We have some rank 3 Exceeds, we have Nightmare Shark, Utopic Ray Lancer, we have Grand Pulse to pop back row, we have Unicorn, Underworld Goddess, Nightmare Phoenix, just a bunch of random extra deck generic stuff that we could theoretically make, but we really don't need to. I think the biggest reason that you go into your extra deck is either to force out back row with Grand Pulse or Phoenix, or if your opponent has 0 monsters on their field and you kind of still want to attack full game and you need monsters with more than 0 attack, and this is when you can actually make your Xyz monsters and just make monsters that actually have an attack value so that you can attack with. So okay, so with that said, let's have a look at some replays. Okay, first game we're going second. Let's show what this deck is capable of when it loses the coin flip. MIKANKO is a deck that is better going second than going first. Not just because of the skill being broken, but because the entire deck kind of just gets better when your opponent has a monster on the field that you can attack into. So our opponent is playing B-Troopers, which is a deck that I'm not very familiar with. The deck has a lot of moving pieces, they combo a whole lot, and I have no idea what the deck does, so let's just see what they do and see if we can kind of play around it. So MIKANKO is a really strong deck that is missing a few pieces of support. So they have like the yellow equipped spells and the yellow monster that makes all of their monsters untargetable. And if those supports are in the game, the deck will be really, really toxic. Just like Lyrilisk levels of Cancer, which is not good. So I'm pretty glad that they did not add those cards into the game. Not even with, you know, like a skill that adds into your deck, because that would be really, really toxic. So I feel like the deck is in a pretty good spot right now. No, not toxic, pretty decent. Can still win games against top tier decks in a rogue position. That's a pretty good place for a deck like this to be in. So opponent has 2 set back row plus a bunch of monsters. Heavy Cavalry is one of them that actually has a quick effect. So let's load our graveyard with a bunch of equip spells before we activate the ritual spell. Our opponent has a Retaliating Sea, which banishes the monsters that we use as ritual material, but that's completely okay, because that's we don't really care if the monsters go to the graveyard. And because we have 3 equip spells, we get to pop 3 monsters, 3 cards. We can pop both of their back row and pop the Retaliating Sea. We cannot pop the fusion, so there's no reason to do that. But as they try to use the quick effect to banish our monster, we will use the rivalry that we have set with our skill before we used the ritual spell to negate the effect, and then we can just attack using our 2 monsters, and then that will be lethal. Okay, so this is the second replay, and this replay shows what the deck is capable of doing going first. So our opponent is playing Adamantipator's, which is a pretty interesting deck, and not exactly a top tier deck, but still good enough to showcase what the deck does when we are going first. So what we do is we're gonna use the Great MIKANKO Ceremony to summon the Yohime, and then we're gonna have exactly a copy of Rondo and a copy of Purification Dance in the graveyard. Once you have these 2 in the graveyard, you're pretty much set, because you can equip the Rondo using Ohime, so Ohime is basically a Snatch Steal, and then the Purification Dance is needed for you to use the Promise. So the end goal of going first is Ohime plus Rondo Engrave plus Purification Engrave plus Rivalry and Promise set in the back row. So opponent will summon an Analyzer, we'll go and use Promise, summon the Needy from deck, and then equip the Purification, and then use Needy's effect to steal our opponent's monster. Opponent will be using the skill to summon a copy of Stardust Dragon. I'm not really too afraid of that, we can let him do that. He will be using the skill to set Trap that pops a card. That is completely fine, I don't really mind. Our Rivalry being popped, we can still train it anyway, just to get ourselves Water Arabesque in rotation. Opponent will then make a copy of Reptide, which we can use Purification Dance to bounce, and then, yeah, opponent can't really beat our board. And we still have the Snatch Steal from our Ritual Monster that we still haven't used yet, so GG's. Okay, game 3, we're playing the expensive version, and this shows the kind of the alternate thing that this deck can do when it goes first, which is possible in the expensive version. So if you don't draw any Battle Fader type cards, you'll pretty much do the exact same thing that we did last game, which is to make the Ohime plus the traps. But because we have Kiteroid and we already have Ohime access, we can instead just add a whole bunch of Battle Faders to our hand and then just end turn. And we will use the Nadir Servant to add the Buford, which is another attack negating hand trap. And then we'll just set one and end our turn, because we need to discard for hand size otherwise. So we just set a Rondo. It doesn't really matter if our opponent pops it. In fact, it's probably better if they do, because Rondo being in the graveyard means that our Ritual Spell can pop an additional card. So our opponent doesn't know that we have Kiteroid, so they're gonna try to just summon a bunch of guys and try to attack, because they think that the Buford is the only card that we have that blocks an attack. They don't know that we have Kiteroid, so they're gonna try to just summon the 2 Luster Dragons and then just go to battle. And then they're gonna realize that we have the Kiteroid, so they couldn't actually go for game. So they're gonna end on a board with like nothing. Like, they don't have any interruptions, so next turn we can just summon the Yohime and win, so you're just gonna scoop right now, which is pretty funny.